Chin Music. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11, looking at some GPP bats for tonight's slate. I got 14 games, a lot of kind of good hitters that are priced down to a certain degree, kind of site dependent. A lot of good offenses going tonight in some good spots. We have Bronson Arroyo on the hill, so we know what to do there. We also have Clayton Kershaw, Steven Strasburg, so I think kind of tending to focus on mid-range to value plays is what I'll be doing. Jumping in a catcher here, I don't mind Salvador Perez against Josh Tomlin. You look at Josh Tomlin, this is a guy I'll continuously pick on. Against right-handed bats, 357 WOBA to righties, 1.65 home runs per nine, low ground ball rate, the strikeout potential not really there, below 20%. Tomlin's just a guy who just gives up a lot of home runs and a lot of potential just on these right-handed bats. So Salvador Perez, this is a guy with some good power behind the dish. Has 11 home runs on the season. Been a little bit quiet of late. Haven't seen a big upside game out of him in a while. We haven't really seen a home run outside of the two that he hit, about a week and a half ago. But you look at Perez, solid numbers. I think he has a solid price across the industry. He's the guy I just don't mind firing away with and kind of hoping for that upside. So if you're looking elsewhere, Yasmani Grandal, I'll definitely consider. 3,600 on DK, not a bad price tag. He does hit better at home, but this is a good spot for lefties at Miller Park. I like the Dodgers bats quite a bit. And you look at Jimmy Nelson, allowing a 38% hard contact rate to lefties this year. He hasn't been too bad. Is striking them out a fair amount. But this is also a spot where, larger sample sizes, Jimmy Nelson hasn't been as great against lefties. FIP next to around 3.5. So I like the Dodgers here tonight. In that ballpark, I think there are going to be some home runs hit, some good power potential. So Grandal is certainly one of those guys that I'll consider. On FanDuel, if you want to consider someone below 3K, Tyler Flowers, 2,700 is a guy I'll take a look at. This guy isn't a bad option, especially against Bronson Arroyo, who's allowing a 379 WOBA to righties, 36% hard contact rate, 2.37 home runs per nine. Flowers, hitting extremely well this year. I like the price tag. On DraftKings, it's not bad either, but it's a decent discount on FanDuel as well. Hitting, nearly 370 over the last 2 weeks. A couple of homers. Not a big home run guy, only has 3 on the year, but in this ballpark against Bronson Arroyo, I like Flowers quite a bit, and I'll be talking about this game fairly often. So looking at first base, if you do have the luxury of paying up, and I'm kind of curious to see what these high-priced first baseman's ownerships are going to be. It's Joey Votto for me. Fultonowitz has always been a guy who struggles with lefties. That's continued this year. 379 WOBA, 34% hard contact rate, 1.71 home runs per nine. Low ground ball rate in that ballpark, who doesn't miss a ton of bats. Votto should eat that up all day. So I definitely prefer him out of kind of the higher price group, and we'll definitely be going that way. If you're looking for a nice mid-range guy, Miguel Cabrera, 4,200 on DraftKings against Derek Holland. You look at Cabrera, hitting lefties well this year. Only hitting 260, but still hitting the ball hard. BABIP is lower than his career norm. Hard contact rate's completely fine. You look at Holland, this is a guy who's going to be rolling really lucky. I'll talk about him on the pitcher pod or on the stacking pod. 1.43 home runs per nine, 41% hard contact rate to right-handers. So Miguel Cabrera is definitely a guy that I'll be taking a look at. And if you're on FanDuel, kind of looking for someone in that mid-range, Brandon Belt, 3,400. He's going to get some lower ownership, but in that ballpark, I like him quite a bit. I do like targeting lefties against Eichhoff, 358 WOBA, 1.64 home runs per nine. Brandon Belt's got some good power, and Citizens Bank definitely plays really well for left-handers. So he's kind of that next guy that I like to look at. And then if you're kind of looking elsewhere, on the cheaper side, there isn't a ton I particularly love it just because those guys, they kind of suck up a lot for me. But Brandon Belt on DK, 4K is nice. And if you're looking elsewhere, Chris Davis, I have some interest in. On the cheaper side, only 4K on DraftKings. Not a ton of people are going to be looking at him. But you look at Marcelo, 45% hard contact rate to lefties, 352 WOBA allowed, 1.35 home runs per nine. The strikeout rate is up for Purcell, which kind of hurts Davis a little bit, but I like the potential here, especially in Camden Yards, and especially as a low ownership play. So Chris Davis is another one I kind of can stand out to me. Looking at second base here, I think if you're paying up for this one, um, you really shouldn't be. I think Robinson Cano draws a little bit of interest for me against Odorizzi. Odorizzi kind of struggling with lefties a little bit this year, but still not allowing a ton of hard contact rate, 321 will allow, but doesn't miss a lot of bats. I think Cano at 4,200 is an intriguing option, especially in that late game. Brandon Phillips isn't a guy that I'll particularly say has a ton of upside, but anyone against Bronson Arroyo is going to have some upside. Really cheap on both sides. Part of the Brave stack that I'll be looking at tonight, so he's certainly one to consider. But as far as huge upside goes, Robinson Cano has it. Jose Altuve against Darvish, I'm not particularly thrilled with. Brian Dozier's in a bad ballpark, so I don't know how much I'll be going with this. I mean, Daniel Murphy, I don't mind. 4,400 on DK is decent. Prices dropped down a little bit, 36. So I think paying up for a Murphy or Cano in the late game might be the contrarian way to go. Otherwise, Brandon Phillips, I think, is a nice value option in this one. So I'll definitely kind of be looking there instead. Third base, if you're paying up, I mean, there are some intriguing guys. Nolan Arenado against Clayton Richards, intriguing, given that Richards allowed a 367 WOBA to righties and was allowed 8 home runs to right-handed bats, even at Petco Park, which is death of power hitters. But I don't mind him. I don't see a lot of people paying up for Arenado, just given the pitching on the slate. So he's definitely a guy that I'll kind of take a look at. Manny Machado, obviously struggling this year, and struggling, I just mean not finding the holes like he has been in the past. Only hitting 211, but power's been there, 10 home runs, 25 RBIs. Certainly fine on the year, hard contact rate. Everything checks out for Machado. BABIP is extremely low. And like I said, you just look at Porcello, he's just allowing a ton of hard contact rate to righties. Near 40% hard contact rate, 350 WOBA, 1.29 home runs per 9. This is a good spot for Machado here. I don't mind him at these prices to kind of take some shots on. So I'll definitely be looking to do that. Might be able to get away with like a Nick Castellanos, 3,100 on DraftKings is extremely cheap. Even on FanDuel, I mean, he's down there priced 2,600. Should move up in the order against a lefty. He talked about Holland and what his numbers are in the Cabrera talk. So Castellanos is a guy I definitely will kind of consider for a cheap value with some power upside. Shortstop for me is Corey Seager. 3,500 on FanDuel is certainly a reasonable price tag. And then I look at 4,300 on DK. That's certainly something that I like quite a bit. You look at Seager, struggling a little bit here. Strikeouts, he's starting to press a little bit, but I don't mind against Jimmy Nelson in that ballpark. I think, he'd be a cash game guy for me if, he was hitting well, but it does look like he's pressing a little bit. So this is a spot where I can see him kind of jumping out and get things going. So I do like Seager quite a bit. And if you're moving down to kind of a cheap option, Brandon Crawford, guy with some power in that ballpark. I don't hate. Talked about Eichhoff and his struggles against lefties. He's on the cheaper side. There's some potential there. Outside of that, though, I mean, I think Crawford kind of sucks up a lot of the GPP owners because I don't see a lot of people having him. So I'm not particularly thrilled with using like Dansby Swanson, even against Bronson Arroyo hitting bottom half of that lineup. Didi Gregorius, I don't hate, but it's a guy who obviously probably won't be in the lineup against the lefty, but Trevor Story, I don't hate. Struggling a little bit over the last couple of games. Did show off a couple of home run potentials, since coming back from the DL. Against a lefty, I mean, ton of hard contact. Just the ballpark isn't great, so that's the only downside. But if you want a low-owned play, I don't mind going that route. If you kind of have some extra cash there. And he has a good pivot away from Seager. So moving over to the outfield, talk about a couple of guys in that Reds game. Scott Schebler, this guy's been hitting the ball really well, extremely well, over the last few games. I mean, he's got 5 home runs over the last 2 weeks. Oddly enough, they've all been solo shots, which is weird. So it'd be nice if we can get some guys on base. But, I mean, man has 16 home runs on the season. If we're looking up against full team notes, as I said with Votto, this guy struggles with lefties. 379 WOBA, 34% hard contact rate allowed in that ballpark. Schebler's always a good GPP guy. And then on the other side, Matt Kemp. Matt Kemp, back-to-back home runs, going up against Bronson Arroyo, who we talked about before. This is such a good spot for him. He's still not even overpriced. I'll continue to kind of look his way. So Kemp's definitely one of my favorite outfielders. I'll just be using a ton of him tonight as kind of a top guy. And I'm curious to see once again if people are just going to go with, the JD Martinez, Stanton Ozuna, who are also in play against the lefty Corbin. I like quite a bit. But you're just always curious to see where Kemp lands in terms of the ownership, and it's always in your favor. So I'll definitely be looking to go that way. If you're moving down, Baltimore outfielders are certainly in play, like Trumbo and Jones. Talked about Porcello already. There is some intriguing there. And then you kind of drop down even fewer. Nick Markakis, I don't hate. Once again, it's that ballpark plays really well. There's a lot of options to kind of open up in that Atlanta game if you need some cheap value outfielders. Andrew Romine, this isn't a guy, obviously, a big home run potential, but I do see this guy having a decent chance of a multi-hit game, getting some runs in, against a bad lefty. I know the ERA is under 3, but this guy is a bad lefty. So, he's intriguing on tonight's slate just to look at in terms of a value sense and possibly in a Tigers stack. So I think that's kind of where I could be heading for a cheap value outfielder in terms of GPPs. Because then outside of that, I mean, Jackie Bradley Jr. is 3,200, and he might be a little bit popular just because of recency bias. But you look at Asher, I mean, this guy's not a strong right-handed pitcher. So I could see using him there. He's completely overpriced on DraftKings, but the upside is there on FanDuel. Keep an eye on Justin Upton. If he's in the lineup, I'll consider him, but he's day-to-day with the quad issue. Andrew McCutchen, this is a guy I like for GPPs tonight. Has a hit in every game for about the last 8 games. Showing a couple home run upside. Still cheap, 3,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he is 4,200. Looking at Matt Harvey this year, not particularly strong numbers, 3.34 WOBA to righties, 37% hard contact rate, 1.76 home runs per 9. So I like Cutchin. I don't think a lot of people will use him tonight, but this is a good spot to kind of pick on Harvey, and for people that are using Harvey, to kind of go with McCutchen and going against the grain there. So that's going to wrap things up here. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com, check out our great tools and content.